Hi.
How's it going? So I'm Elgar. I've met some of you guys, but hello, I'm Elgar anyway. And I'm going to introduce myself quickly. I'm an editor and stylist and hosting today's panel, which should be really interesting. It's really, really great to be able to speak to all you guys who are really just so brilliant at everything you do. So it's actually really nice for me to sort of chat to you guys as well. So.
Hello, everyone. I'm Cyndia Harvey. I'm a hairstylist.
Hi, everyone. I'm Campbell.
Hi.
Hello. I'm a photographer and filmmaker in South London.
Hi, I'm Emma. Like Cyndia, I work with everyone here. I'm a session manicurist and have been in the industry for like 12 years. I also own a salon that opened 3 years ago next month. So yeah, that's me.
Hi, I'm Rosh Mahtani. I started a jewelry brand called Elgar Jewelry. It's been around 7.5 years now.
So I've got a whole load of questions here, but I feel like I want to ask all of you the same question. So that's what I'm going to do. What is it that made you want to be part of the industry that you're part of?
It always begins with hair. And I had no particular interest in fashion, to be honest with you. And I didn't even know that this side of the industry existed, but I was really passionate about hair. And I'm the kind of person who I'm super micro in my thinking. And so very detail orientated. And so whatever I do, I want to excel to like, you know, the most extreme version of that, basically. So even when I had my first job at McDonald's, it's like I wanted to be the best McDonald's person. You know, and I was having a conversation with my friend the other day, actually, and we were speaking about what motivates us. Just giving it my all is a massive motivation for me. And so that's kind of how I ended up where I am now, just wanting to, out of that desire to give it my all and seeing how big I can go, or how big I can grow with anything that I do.
Bit similar to Cyndia, like I didn't think fashion was an avenue that suited me or my interest. It was mainly, I wanted to tell stories. I was always the kid in school that was, you know, off in the clouds, dreaming of, you know, Neverland. And I just kind of didn't know where I could put my energy in stories. And the only thing you get told at school is, you know, like story writing, creative writing. And I'm like, I can't read and write a spell, so that's not me. But I loved art and I loved drawing. And then I kind of just became, I call it lazy. I was like, oh, it takes 2 weeks to do one portrait painting. How can I speed this up? And then I discovered like really fun, exciting shoots that were, you know, that matched my creative weirdness in my head. And I thought, oh, the fashion industry is kind of like art, but we can do whatever we want, and there's clothes and there's all these things. So I just kind of tried to funnel my way into that realm. I didn't think it would end up like this. I'm very happy it ended up like this. But it's, yeah, mainly just like, where can I put my craziness and it not look like crazy?
I had a whole different career before this. So I have got a media degree and I worked in TV production and then advertising. I was beginning to really hate the politics, hate what I would have had to have done to got anywhere, to be fair, and found it all very ugly. And I think myself and a friend were in a similar position, and we were just brainstorming what day, like one evening, what we could do to make ourselves happier. I had always been interested in nails. I had, like thinking back, I remember I went to Ghana when I was like 16 once and brought back a nail kit and was doing everyone's nails in college and like charging them, even though I wasn't qualified at all, which is like hilarious. So I just did some courses. I did some nail courses and I did some jewelry design courses at Central St. Martin's. I just wanted to do things that made me feel happier and that I liked. But because I did have friends that since being in TV had then gone into like music or had gone into like different avenues, I then kind of started doing nails for like music videos and artists. And I think maybe because I was quite used to having those kind of conversations and having clients and being the client from working in advertising, I would just ask people like, oh, how do I do this? Or how can I test for this shoot? And just quite quickly kind of like made certain connections, and then equally then started like working with people. And And obviously I was no one's first choice back then. Like, so I was still had a full-time job in advertising and had an amazing boss by then who every time I had my name in a credit would ask to see it and would give me time off if I needed to do a shoot. And like I said, I was no one's first choice then. So I would get options at 5 o'clock the night before. And I'd ask him if I could have it off and he would let me have it off. And that's how I kind of built my career slowly. And I was in a very privileged position in the sense that I had the best of two worlds. I had a full-time job and was able to pick my options, and then also was building my career slowly. And I think this is when nails went for a bit of like a real peak about 10 years ago. And I didn't know how I was going to make the jump, but the aim was by that point to get into session and fashion full time and to leave the advertising world, when I was told that my boss had been made redundant and then I was made redundant. And that was then just the push I needed. Like, there was no coming back from that. And I remember telling my parents and my dad saying, well, you're going to get another job. And I was like, no, but I've been meaning to make this jump for the last 2 years. I've just been too scared and comfortable. I'm never going to find another boss like him. And by that point, I was working with agents and stuff. Like, so it was just like, what am I doing? And then I left. I went and did nails full time in session work. And then I signed with my first agency 6 months later.
So I think, like, you know, it's sort of an amalgamation of everyone's story in some ways. You know, I was always, like you, Campbell, the one at school who, like, there was so much I wanted to say and do, but like I wasn't actually good at anything. I didn't know like where to put my energy, and all I wanted to do was tell ridiculous stories. And that kind of got, you know, squashed out of me a bit at school and at university. And after I graduated, I was just, you know, in quite a dark place in my life for, you know, lots of reasons. And I just felt lost and felt a bit like, you know, well, where do I belong? And it's so interesting you ask about, you know, was it always fashion, and how did I come to be interested in fashion? I guess I don't think that, like, I was interested in it as a consumer and as a spectator. You know, as a teenager, I would religiously buy magazines and be looking at it, but I never for a minute thought that I could be part of it. Like, that wasn't a world that I ever thought I could access. But after, you know, university, I started, you know, working in wax to make jewelry, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I didn't have any training in it, but I felt, I guess in some ways, Campbell, maybe in the same way that photography did for you, I felt like I finally had like a material that understood my like silliness, or like my lack of ability to follow rules, and to create things that, you know, looked a bit how I felt, sort of like a little like textured and full of holes and all of the above. And then, you know, I guess I saw a bit of a gap for jewelry that had genuine meaning, that had storytelling behind it, that, you know, where the story wasn't an afterthought or a marketing ploy. The story was, you know, ingrained in the piece. And it made me think back to, you know, the times where I would sit on my mum's bed as a ritual on Sundays as a kid and look through the few pieces of jewelry that she had, and she'd tell me the story about where it all came from. And, you know, I'd talk to my friends or people around the world when I went traveling, and they all had the same stories. And I was just like, isn't it amazing that there is this vehicle that is so universal, and that everyone can be part of? And I loved it because of that. And I guess I was really lucky that I had a few people at the beginning who really believed in it and like allowed it to grow.
You know, what did you know about the level of expectation within the industry? You know, how to make money, and you know, did you know anything? How to get by and survive in it, I guess. How did you find that out?
So I'll just backtrack a little bit, because after everyone's amazing answers, I feel like I haven't told my full story now. You know, I think at the point where I got into fashion was after doing 5 years in a salon, and had come to the point where I had absorbed everything that I possibly could, and, you know, worked my way up from a junior stylist all the way up to a senior stylist, and then sort of like wanting to find out, okay, what is next? I'm not feeling challenged anymore. And so I kind of discovered this industry actually through an interview of another hairstylist, and he basically gave all these advice on how to break into the business. I followed the exact thing, step 1 to 5 to the T. And obviously that's reaching out to agencies and offering your services for assisting. And I guess with me specifically, obviously coming from an Afro hair salon, I had a very specific set of skills that hairstylists at the time didn't have. And no hairstylist had it. Most assistant definitely didn't have it either. And so that gave me a massive advantage. And as someone who actually has worked in, I've been completely independent since I was 16. I left home from when I was 16, had to kind of find my way through the world. And that includes actually, the things you actually don't get taught any life skills in school. So how do you navigate the world of like budgeting, paying your rent, going to work, getting what you need for work, your equipment. And so I kind of had to figure it all out on my own. And so, yeah, it was a huge challenge. And actually what really helped me at the time when I got into assisting, financially, you're expected to expect nothing. And I kind of went along with that. I was in a very fortunate situation because at the time I was living in a council flat because I, left home when I was 16. So then, my rent was really affordable. So I could actually afford to do that. And now when I think about it, I don't know how I would have been able to assist without having that cushion. And that was it was just very fortunate. It's actually impossible to assist without having either parents who can support you, parents, family who can support you, or you just don't have any other outgoings, or you're actually getting paid like you should. Of course, this was not for the entire time that I assisted, but certainly for the first couple of years that I assisted, and I just kind of accepted it. And I think I used to do private clients so that I can sustain myself and put food on the table. It doesn't feel like you can actually ask the question like, actually I'm struggling a bit, which it's a lot of it, I have been in that position. yeah and you kind of don't even speak about it with your other assistant friends or your other colleagues because there's no set rates for this industry. Therefore, everyone could be on a much different, cause a lot of complexities.
No one gives you the rule book, but the expectation, especially, I guess, like when I started, and I think it's still here now. I mean, maybe it's better, maybe it's not, but I mean, I worked for free as an intern, and like I didn't ask. I was just so I felt so grateful that I was offered the opportunity, that I was like, well, I'll be an au pair in my spare time and I'll do whatever I can. There were times where I paid for my boss's trips to Fashion Week. Like I paid for the apartment, which is like, wow. And back then I was just like, well, I'm just lucky because I get to go. And now I look back and I'm like, that was like all of my savings. But you see it even with, stockists and retailers, when they buy into you, there's no such thing as a deposit, and that's just the norm. And then, you ask for a deposit and it's like that's a faux pas, you can't do that. And it's not industry standard, so just accept that. And I think when you're first going into that and you don't feel like you have the confidence to fight it, because in order to get ahead with it, you do have to put your foot down and say like, actually, no, like I can't do this without a deposit, or you're not having that on sale or return. I can't afford to give that to you. I can't afford to, create that much stock at my risk, and then you give it back to me at the end of the season. And without the courage to say those things, it's so easy to really get like really financially in trouble in this industry, I think.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And I think coming from like a 9 to 5, then going into this industry, something that I always notice is how small you can earn and then how big you can earn. And then in and amongst itself. So like, obviously, when you are assisting or when you're doing editorial or whatever it may be, we might not get paid a penny. And then trying to explain that to your non-fashion friends and / family that you've just done this week-long editorial and not been paid anything is like nuts. They can't comprehend it. Like, but then our day rates in comparison to a lot of industries is ridiculous. Like, and trying to explain that to my assistants and trying to help them navigate it and just, I don't know.
It's crazy because like it's weird because I always used to say like I was so embarrassed to be poor growing up, and like I think now in my late 20s it was the best training for finance, because not having any money, going to St. Martin's and being like the poor South Londoner, it wasn't a key. It was very stressful because I'd go to places. I remember like in foundation not being able to visit like Berlin because I couldn't afford the trip. So I remember going to uni and my friend Sam calculated how many days we have and how much we're paying each day. So I always have finance in the back of my head. And I, like Cyndia, I left home at 16. So I already had a job. I remember in first year I was interning and I was working and I was in every day. And then I'm glad I did it because it taught me that I can't be an assistant. Photographers around me assisted for years. And I was like, I will never have the opportunity because I need to pay rent.
Can't afford to.
And I picked my course specifically because of finance, because it's 2 years in education, 1 year in, a year out, and then the final year to go back. And I did that on purpose because I was like, it is a subsidized uni loan, but it's still something, so I can still work. But even during the year out, I did an internship at Show Studio and an intern with Jamie Morgan. And it really taught me being really independent and then being like, it's kind of like a conglomerate, how I need to work my finances. And the first thing I did when I came back to my final year was get another job, even though everyone else was like, obviously it's your final year. And I was like, I calculated the student loan I have a year after uni if I don't touch it. So I've got technically 2 years now to do something to give me money. And it was stressful. I did a lot of photography-based jobs. Like I thought, I have a skill. What can I took portraits for LinkedIn.
Did you do any wedding?
I did one wedding and I was like, this is the most stressful thing I can ever do. Because they don't let you drink and they don't let you eat because you're scared to like fuck up the pictures.
Yeah.
And also this is someone's wedding. No. I don't want that shit. But I did it. I did every single. I did press shoots. I did shoots for shoes and babies, and it was just because I was like, I've got a year. But then once I was out of uni, I was just like Cyndia said, they don't teach you how to finance things. Like I've now being a bit established, I understand it, but it's still so like I'm the first person in my family to go to uni, first one in my household to own anything, to have a business. So I didn't know any of those things, but it was just a lot of I've been poor and I can be poor again, but I shouldn't have to. So that was all that was in my head, was like, and none of my friends either, all my peer group, we were all the first to do anything. So we couldn't even say, oh, hey, how do we do this? So it was a lot of Google, a lot of HMRCs, but also a lot of saving. Like I never did halls. I could pay for a roof of £400. Why am I going to pay for 1,000? So there's all these little things I had to think about. And then when it came to being secure, like Emma said, it's like, I remember getting £4 an hour, like washing toilets at Sports Direct. And then now you're getting these editorial rates. And it's like, I still remember walking to Topshop to go to work. So if I get a rate, I'm not like, yeah, I can spend it. But even now, I still don't know if there is a way to feel financially secure. Because one, if you can't intern, you don't actually know how the system works. Like interning with Jamie Morgan, one-on-one with him, I got to see budget breakdowns for the first time. I got to see everything that goes into it. Whereas if I hadn't done that, I'm not sure if when I'd left uni, if a client was like, oh, can you come and shoot this for us? I would know what to say. I remember having like £10 in my account and having to travel to St. John's Wood. And then was like, I don't know how I'm going to eat tonight. Like it was very much, and it's this weird juxtaposition of, oh, I'm on set shooting this, but then I've got baked beans in my cupboard. It was a very weird space to live in, but still, unis don't teach you that. Like, I have interns from St. Martin's, and the first thing I talk to them about is budgets, and they're like, "What? We're not going to talk about photography." I'm like, "You can learn that later. Like, you need to learn how to,
treat this like a business, really."
And I think it comes from the kind of trope of like creativity and commerce, and you're just creative, you're making from the heart, but actually it is a business. And that's kind of like the murkiness of fashion as well, where nothing is, I'm going to say police for lack of a better word, but there's no overseeing body that is making sure that the young people who get into the industry have a structure, and actually independent artists has a policy to follow to make sure that these young people are having those conversations and getting the tools that they need to be able to negotiate assistant rates, etc. You know, we're kind of in this industry where it is anything goes. There's no boundaries, and I think, you know, like a lot of this stems from that.
I feel like also before you even get to the assisting part, I think it's one of the many sort of failings of the educational system that they don't actually teach you. I mean, in a lot of industries, if you said you wanted to be, I don't know, a maths teacher, they wouldn't necessarily tell you how to earn money and save money. But if you went to a teacher and said, well, I want to be a creative, if that doesn't mean acting, then they don't care and they have no idea what it is. So you're just left literally to do it, I think, probably on your own.
I've always said, like, even from the beginning when I wasn't paying myself, but I will never not pay an intern. And I think, like, we still have that. But more than that, it just breaks my heart now to see so many, whenever we're kind of recruiting or looking for interns or anyone on our team, you know, all of these incredible students who are so talented and they come with their portfolios, and all they've been trained to do is to be a designer, and they all want to design, and that's amazing, but like those jobs are so few and far between. Like the job of like being a designer, is that even a real job? Like I don't personally even think that like exists. But then there are all of these like amazing jobs around that, you know, merchandising or styling or product development, where there's money to be made and would allow these students to be able to apply to different jobs. But I see so many of them going on then to start making and designing and just losing so much money, because it was never taught to them that like you can't make a garment that you know you can't sell. Like if it costs this much to make, then it has to cost this much to sell. And if you can't sell it for that much, then you're not going to make that sale and you're going to be out of pocket. And just simple thing of margins, like, and that doesn't have to destroy creativity. It's just the thing that allows you to sell the product. My dad, you know, came from really nothing, was down and out, and he trained himself to be an accountant. So, you know, I always had that around me growing up, that was like, firstly, like you never spend money that you don't have. So when I first started, I was like, you know, whenever I got, you know, my first press call-ins, I would like hand deliver them. I didn't have money to courier or anything. And, you know, that was amazing, because then, you know, I got to meet the stylist and have that conversation and learn. So in some ways, like not having it is what, you know, what you were saying, Campbell, like not having it is what allows you to, what pushes you to get further. And, you know, being the delivery person means that you see what's on the front line and you make those friendships. But I do think that, you know, I've been saying this for the last like 5 years to, you know, UAL, where we like post our job vacancies, like why aren't these things on the curriculum? And everyone agrees, but why hasn't it changed? Like, why isn't that a mandatory part, and a part that should be exciting, not like, oh, the boring thing. Like, it's actually exciting to be able to create product that you can sell, because it allows you to make the next thing or do the next project.
No, I totally agree with you, Rosh. And, you know, I think we are small businesses, aren't we? That's how we should be taught to approach it. And even if you go into a 9-to-5 job, you are a small business nonetheless. You know, the investment side of thing, that's another huge.
I don't know how you guys are expected to do it with, like, you know, your equipment and, you know, your kit. Like, that's insane.
100%. And actually the first 2 years after I got signed, because I trained on the Sam McKnight and I was kind of like used to working at a certain level, I obviously aspired to kind of like for my entry point to be that level in terms of like what, when I show up to a job, what I was able to give. The first 2 years of everything I earned went back into my kit, you know, because everything is expensive. Everything for a hairdresser is really expensive. Your wigs and your hair extensions, for one, which you're almost required on every shoot to do. And I just remember like everything I earned went back into my kit, and I wasn't prepared for that.
But that's another thing, the disparity thing is, like, when you first start and you're building your kit, you're buying all of this yourself, right? And you're figuring out what you're going to need, and some things you end up needing and not, and whatever else, and then you find your own groove within it. But then obviously the bigger you get, the more you get sent things. So it's like when you actually need the support.
So true.
That's very true. Yeah, I didn't think about that because it's weird because like my kit, because it's funny, I literally just did like a itinerary and everything was bought in uni.
Yeah.
The amount of cameras I've bought, broken, film I've had to get, lights, and just like Rosh was saying, lugging it around. I had eBay notifications and I was just always looking, and like people say like hustler. I made friends with the same people who do my film. Now, back when I first moved to London, I worked at Lomography because I was like, I'm going to shoot film, but I don't have the money to. So I'd be like, oh, instead of like paying me a bit extra, give me some free film. But then it's a thing where it's like, not everyone should have to do that even. And it's a thing where I remember the first ad campaign job that I did, like a small Korean brand. I remember turning up and they expecting me to have my equipment. And I was like, and then I was like, okay, cool. Me and my friend from uni tried to rent out equipment from a local, and you need to have 5K deposit. I had £10. Like it was like, so it was a lot of like, daylight shoots and then the first jobs I did all went back into equipment that would break, and now I just rent it out. Like it's really funny because it's like I'm not expected to have my own equipment. There should be one syllabuses at university where you talk about HMRC, businesses, taxes, and that. And then when you leave, there should be some sort of schemes where students could get dummy kits or even just have a student rental service where you don't have to have £5,000 to put on deposit. It would allow for a lot more creatives at the beginning of their career not to have to, have 4 jobs or work on really just to breathe.